allowing us into the inner sanctum.
No, you're welcome anytime.
I have to say, I took a peek around the office.
Yeah?
Understated, like the man himself.
Yeah, is it? Yeah, it's something where we do most of our work, post-production, everything happens here. So we just needed, and I do the writing here, so I needed a place which would be calm and quiet.
I was going to ask you, the writing is done on this desk?
Yeah.
Is this where all the
all the struggle, all the bloodshed, all that happens here.
What is your writing process like, Manisa? Is there specific times? Is it a discipline? Do you write a number of hours?
It's not that. It's not like number of hours I do. It's just that if it's an idea, it's there in your mind and you work on it. So you try to put your thing, and when it flows well, otherwise. But you give yourself some targets that I try to do. Say, this once I lock on the structure, then you try to do, say, 5 scenes a day, like that, so that you have a target to meet the first draft, and then it just becomes iterations.
Sure. Typically, how long for the first draft?
It depends. Sometimes it doesn't come through fully, so you leave it 3/4 and you go on to something else, and years later you take it up and fill it in, things like that. But if I'm at it for maybe 3 months.
What's usually the starting point for a film, Manisa? Is it something you've read, something you saw, a person you met, an incident in the news? What is usually a starting point?
Yeah, I think it's invariably things you've seen, things you know to an extent, and it doesn't the next day become a script. It's an idea. You always feel that maybe there's a movie there. And if it keeps coming back to you, then you know that there's something in you that is invested into it, and then you take it up and see whether you are able to develop it. Some of them you can't develop. Maybe somebody else can, but I'm not able to. So I leave it. I accept it. Get on with it. And sometimes things that you leave falls into place much later. Then you materializes. Then it's a big hit and miss.
I walked around the office, and I have to say, it hardly looks like an office that has a film release in 2 days from now. I have to say, in Bombay, it's usually so bustling. I understand now when you meant you like a place that's calm and cool. I can see exactly what you meant.
I know. We are
or happening behind closed doors.
It is all happening. Don't worry about it. Film release is a film release. You can't change it. Everything, however prepared you are, is still, everything that has to happen.
I wanted to ask you, Manisa, after all these years, what's it like for you just before a release? It's now 34 years you've been working in the movies. This is your 25th film, Kaatru Veliyidai. What's it like just before a release?
You've learned how to deal, So you've done your job. You cannot touch the film anymore. So you let it go. You just sit back and relax. If possible, think of the next one. If possible, think of where you want to take off. Get on with it.
But the mood, excitement, anxiety, a mixture?
I think it'll be a mixture. You just wonder how it'll be perceived, received, and how it'll be looked at. But it's what I believed in for the last year and a half. I put in everything inside it and tried to get it as polished as possible for this, as true to the thought as possible. So you've done it. So let go.
Does making movies get easier with time, Manisa?
It gets tougher.
Really?
It really gets tougher. Honestly, it gets tougher in more than one sense, because one, you have to stay away as far as possible from what you have already done. So, you have to be conscious of falling into patterns. You try to keep varying so that you don't get into that same zone. And two, right or wrong, you have set yourself a certain basic standard, and you should make sure that you go beyond it. You don't settle on what you have reached. No, it's not a feel, or it's not an what do you call it? A profession where you can sit back and relax. You've got to reach for more, and you should try. You may not, but you should try to make sure your film is better than your last film.
Your last film, OK Kanmani, was an intimate story. It was a love story, but a really intimate love story about these characters. The new one, Kaatru Veliyidai, is set against a much larger canvas, isn't it? It's still clearly a love story, but it's set against the backdrop of the Air Force. There's seems to be terrorism. It also seems like it spans many more years in the lives of these two characters.
Yeah, it is. It's in a lot of ways. Between the last film was about this youngsters of today, and they're coping up with changing society and their own changing attitudes. Whereas this is about, this set first of all in a period. It's about end 90s, towards the turn of the century. Around that time, it's set against the Air Force backdrop. It doesn't have terrorism in it, but it is a relationship story that is set against this vast, landscape, both in terms of the scape of time and of the land.
I don't know if you read the blogs, the fan blogs, the internet. The perception is that it's evocative of Roja.
Yeah.
At least the imagery, the snow, the army, the terrorists, or the conflict.
Yeah.
The love story, of course, appears to be very different, but it does seem to evoke Roja. Fair?
It will have nothing to do with Roja at all.
Okay.
It will be absolutely, apart from the fact that it is set in Srinagar.
Right.
I don't think there are many other common issues between the two.
So I'm going to try one more. Now, Roja was anchored to a significant degree by Madhu's character.
Yeah.
You've also said about Kaatru Veliyidai that the film relies very heavily on Aditi Rao Hydari's character, Dr. Leela, and that she carries the film.
Yeah.
Another parallel?
Not really. I think it's possibly the reverse of that, in the sense here the variation is with the male protagonist, who's got the ups and downs, and Aditi has to carry it by being herself, by being assertive and being, the sensible equation in the relationship, and so she had to make that entire thing convincing. So in that sense, in a completely different way, she carries the film.
Okay. Your leading man, Karthi, of course, had worked under you as an assistant on Either Irda. What was it like directing him, and did he remind you of his brother, Surya?
First, he worked with me as an assistant, but that was then.
Right.
And right now he's an actor, and I'm the director. So and my job is to get the best out of him.
Sure.
And his job is to perform as well. So our equation remains that when we look at, we just try to get the hold of the character and present it as well as we can. Try to get hold, understand, and present him in a fashion. So our concentration is on that. Off the set, I still treat him like a friend that I knew before, but otherwise he's an actor and I'm a director. It doesn't matter whether he was your assistant before or not. You cannot carry that on to this. This is, here my job is completely different. And whether he reminds me of Surya, no, I don't think at all. I think physically they have some, obviously they have some resemblance, but I think they're two completely different kind of people.
What did you feel was Karthi's strength?
In this, he is doing something which he has not done before, I feel. I think he's been doing, more earthy village and rural rough characters. Here he has to be somebody else. He has to learn to fly. He has to know how an Air Force man thinks and what their mindset is, and be that. To get into a shoe which he's not familiar with.
Right.
To be, he's almost a perfect gentleman in real life, and the character may not be that much of a gentleman. So he has to learn the rougher edges and to make it his own.
Right.
So it was a journey that he had to do.
Manisa, over the last couple of films, you've worked with younger actors, relatively younger actors. In the past, of course, you worked with the greats Rajinikanth, Kamal Haasan, Mammootty, Mohanlal. But is it fair to say of late you've been partial to younger actors? Now, of course, it could be because you're making love stories which require younger actors. But I have to ask, is it also because that keeps you, energized and youthful and, brimming with ideas, on your toes, perhaps?
Actually, when I did films with Kamal and Rajni, they were very young also.
Right.
It was at that point of time that we did. But the thing is, that when, if you have to do a film with, say, either Kamal Hassan or Mohanlal, you should have a material. They're so good and they've done so much that unless you're able to challenge them and push them into a different, unless I have that kind of a script, I won't go to them. I won't dare go to them, So I should have something. If it falls into place, then I will ask them. So it really is dictated to a large extent by, the kind of story that you're taking.